Don't want to leave your 3% interest rate? Are you paying over $2,000 in rent?
When somebody's building, what's the biggest mistake you see them making?
Top mistakes we see home buyers make. Hey, it's Josh and Brian here. Hey, it's Josh and Brian here with the Linhart team at Coldwell Banker Realty. We get some tips and tricks to navigate through that process.
Number one way to be able to keep your interest rate is to rent the house you're living at currently. That's the number one thing. I actually had a conversation with a past client yesterday, and they go, hey, what's the easiest way for me to get into real estate investing? It's renting the house out that you've lived in. A couple of reasons why it's the easiest way. One is you know that house. You know exactly the problems with it. You know exactly if it's good or if it's not. There's not that idea of having a house you don't know anything about. And then it's the other point of the fact that you probably bought that house for 5% down or 10% down. The other thing is too, is your cash flow will be by far the best on a house you've lived in for a while.
Right.
That's probably the most important thing. You have an interest rate that's way lower than anything you can get right now. You have a property that's increased in value where rents have gone up from the day you purchased it to what it is now. So you have the best chance of having the highest amount of cash flow with the house that you're currently living in. The first step to figure out if that makes sense is to know what it could rent for.
Right.
And what's the easiest way to find out how much your house can rent for?
There's lots of things online. Zillow is a great resource to check what are comparable rents going for on that house. Renters Warehouse is another great website to check out. Look at rental companies, what they're charging for similar properties. It's something you did with your first house. Something I did with my first house is I rented it out. And I went from my interest rate on my first house was more expensive than my interest rate on my next house that I bought after that. But it was how I got into real estate investing when I was 22 years old.
Knowing that is, I'll actually tell the story about the first house that I bought was a foreclosed townhome actually for $160,000, which at that time was expensive. What is this, 2016 or something like that? We lived in that house for 4 or 5 years, and I think it was 2019 we moved out of that house. And so I purchased it for $160,000. The day I moved out, we had a 4% interest rate or 4.5% interest rate, I think is what it was. And that house was worth $200,000. We moved out, moved in a different house. I fixed that house out. That house was nicer the day renters moved in than the day I left. My wife wasn't very happy about that. And then put renters in there, and it rented out at like $1,600, I think, at the time. So I made like $400 a month. So now the difference between that then and now, let's say I did sell that property, right? I had a $40,000 equity increase, right? And I would have been able to take that cash to be able to buy a new house, right? But what I was able to do then now is like that house was worth $200,000 then. It's now worth $275,000.
Yep.
My mortgage has went down from where, let's say, I think it was at $135 to now it's at $100,000. My interest rate also went down from 4% to 3%.
Because you refied.
Because I refied.
Yep.
And also rents went from $1,600 to $2,250. Now, when I first did that, $400 a month, not that great, you know, like could take it or leave it, could just use this cash. But the two things that you miss is the fact that rents went up a lot, but let's say they didn't.
Yep.
My mortgage went down. My mortgage rate went down, but also my mortgage principal balance went down. While also the equity in the home went up. And then also my cash flow went up. So I think what happens a lot when somebody initially buys a rental property or they leave their house and they go, well, you know, I'm only getting $300 a month. You know, it's not that much. And that truly probably goes mostly just toward expenses. But the thing is over time, as that principal balance goes down and as that property increases in value and also your rents increase in value, that in the long run, it makes a lot more sense than it does right at the beginning. I think that's what stops people every single time. Having that is knowing that that is by far the easiest way to keep your 3% mortgage. Why would I buy when I can rent for $2,000? Why would I spend more, a little bit more, you know, to buy a house?
Space for your dog, space for family to come over, friends, whatever that may be. And the option to be able to grow your equity and grow your wealth by owning something versus just renting. You're paying somebody else's mortgage and building somebody else's wealth.
I think that's the number one thing really when it comes to when you rent, you probably don't have much. You might not be able to have your dogs there. I own a few rental properties and I allow dogs, and you'd be amazed how many people I get that are like, this is the only place that'll allow a dog. There's one of the big reasons is so you can have some more space. You can own something yourself so you can change out the paint color, so you can make it your own. But I think also when it comes to the financial aspect of it is understand this, is that every month you are making a mortgage payment the principal of your mortgage is going down.
Right.
Your rent is never going down.
Oh, it's just going to go up.
It probably is just going to go up. And the next time you renew your lease, it's probably a little bit higher.
Yep.
Well, luckily, that mortgage payment, that's fixed. For 30 years, you will not pay more than that now. Asterisk that a little bit. Taxes may go up a little bit, so your amount could go up a little.
Yep.
But also, you have a better chance of it just going down because you can refinance that rate. You don't have that. If you're in your rental property for 20 years and it's $2,000 now, 20 years from now, do you think it's $2,000? No, it's not.
No.
You buy a house and it's $2,200 a month. In 20 years from now, how much do you think that's going to be? You've probably refinanced down lower. Right. It's probably even less than that.
Right.
I think that that's the big thing for people to grasp, and also realize that part of that payment is going toward paying that principal. So when you go to sell that property, one, you get an equity increase. Most likely, if the housing market keeps going up, you bought it for $245. In 10 years from now, right? Let's just say it's $300,000. But you bought it at 3.5% down, which is $8,800, right? So you're at $236, something like that, right?
Yep.
Now that in 10 years from now, you're probably going to owe $200,000 on it, right? You're going to have $100,000 in equity. But now if you rent 10 years from now, how much equity do you have?
Zero.
You won't have any.
And you threw, let's say $2,000 over, you're
if that's, so that's, what is that?
448. 2 years, 48 grand. You just threw out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you put it into living somewhere. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But realize that is really the thing I think that gets lost a lot of times with people that rent or they buy. Like, oh, it's just an expense. Well, you have an asset. You own something.
Right.
That can go up, and also you're paying it down. When it comes to rent is never going to disappear. It's never going to go down. They don't go, hey, you've been here for 20 years. You've paid enough. We're going to drop you down to zero, right? Which is exactly what happens with a mortgage. In 30 years from you starting your mortgage, it will be at zero.
Right.
That's what happens. If you are renting, I think it's really important to understand the plan. Like, how do I make this transfer from renting a house into buying a house? And I think you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, when I move into a new property, will I be able to stay there for at least 3 years?
Right.
Understanding that if you're renting and you're moving from city to city and you might not be there for very long, it doesn't make sense for you to buy.
No, you at least want to go 24 months so you're not paying capital gains.
Yes, I think that's an important piece to realize is, like, when you do buy, you do want to be there for a while. You want to be able to keep that property for a long time as you can.
Correct.
So ask that question first. The second one is, do you have a decent credit score?
Right.
Anything typically below 600 gets really hard to be able to finance something.
Yes.
So making sure that you're improving your credit or getting into the higher credit score ranges is going to be helpful for you to be able, one, to even be able to do it, but two, also to give you the best position possible to buy. The third thing I think you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to make that decision? Do you have some cash on hand to be able to handle what does come up when it comes to expenses?
Right.
That is a difference of renting versus buying. You can just call somebody to fix everything in your rental property. When it comes to owning a house, you'll have to have some excess cash on hand to be able to make those updates and improvements to the house. When looking at it from a renter's perspective is get your financing in order, is talk to a lender, make sure you can get pre-approved, and then two, put a plan together on a timeline.
Right.
Understand it takes at least 30 days to close on a property. The amount of renters I have that talk to me and they go, hey, I'm out of my lease here in 1 month. I want to buy a house. I'm like, that is too late.
We should have started 60, 90 days ago.
So my recommendation to them is always check to see if you can put yourself in a month-to-month lease. Either that, or if you're in the middle of a term, if you can find somebody else to rent your property, your landlord will usually let you out. So those are kind of two options. Or ask them, is it okay if I move out in 60 days? I'm looking for a house. If I give you 60 days notice, is that okay? It's a strong enough rental market right now where usually landlords will be okay with that. So those are a couple of strategies to be able to help you decide between renting and buying.
With 26 years of experience and over 1,000 homes sold, here are 4 top mistakes we see home buyers make.
Number one mistake I think we see home buyers make is buying the house that they're really excited about because it looks really pretty. There's so many times you'll see the photos online and then it'll be staged really well, but it'll have bad windows, it'll have bad roof, have bad mechanicals. I think being really diligent about suppressing at least a little bit of the excitement of buying your first house, but also coupling that with the persistence to finding the right one.
Understanding the condition of the house when you're in there versus, hey, it looks really, really nice, but I want to know what's going on with it. Also, worrying about the location of, yes, this one looks nicer over here, but this is a better location. Generally try to buy based off from location versus...
It's the only thing you can't change.
Yes, correct. You can always change a house that way. Pre-approved. Getting pre-approved too late. What happens if you love that house, it's in the perfect location, but now all of a sudden you're too late because you haven't done your homework and gotten pre-approved first. So that is also another good direction to make sure that that step is taken care of up front so you're not behind.
Yeah. Number 3 is understanding the condition. One of the most important things, I think, for a first-time home buyer getting into a new house is realize there's going to be things that will break down in that house. There's going to be things you'll have to take care of after you move into that house. Understanding what things are going to come up within that year, the next year, what things you can do to improve the possibility of those things happening, and protecting yourself and ultimately your house. Those hidden costs as you move into a house, I think, are really important for first-time home buyers to really fully understand.
And the 4th would be choosing a house you can grow into. A lot of times, obviously, that situation isn't, that's why it's kind of 4th on the list. Buying the 1-bedroom house, in your mid to late 20s probably isn't the most ideal situation if you're going to have a family or something along those lines where you want a house you can grow into.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes people can make is buying a house they only can be in for a couple of years. I think having that real conversation, I think, with yourself and also with your agent about, hey, how long do I see myself staying in this year? And the longer you can stay in that house is going to protect you from the peaks and valleys of a real estate market and also be able to gain you the most equity as possible, because it's expensive to sell a house. It's expensive to move, and it's hard to. So as much as you can make sure that a house can be your right house for now and also into the future, and have a plan for what that's going to look like if you do have to move.
When somebody's building, what's the biggest mistake you see them making?
Thinking it's going to be easy for sure.
Okay.
Maybe overestimating their ability to keep up with the process.
Or it's going to be done tomorrow.
Yeah, patience, but I'm pretty upfront with trying to say, hey, just
Okay.
it may look done. It's a ways from done when it looks done.
Yep.
So
Yep.
some things go fast, some things go slow.
Right. There's different stages that, hey, this roof is on. Right? My house could be done in a week. It's like, no, we got sheetrock and everything else to put on there.
Right.
What should I be looking for? What should they be looking for to say, yeah, this is good quality or this isn't good quality? What are some simple things that just stand out to you?
Look closely at the details, I guess.
Like the
You know,
trim.
the trim,
That's
you
the big
know.
thing I always kind of...
Check out the backside of some closet doors.
Yep.
Are they even finished? Are
Yep.
the hinges painted? Or have they been meticulously taken care of and
Yep.
put back on? I mean, I've seen some of these places that the doors are there, they paint the hinges and everything.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
those are kind of things that to
Yep.
make you be a little bit aware of what's going on.
Is this a quick build or not a
Yeah.
quick build? I mean, are doors straight? Are doors shutting? Are the trim or the nail holes in the trim, are they covered? I mean,
Correct.
is there gaps in the trim? That's a lot of things I'm kind of looking for. And how does the plumbing look? Do we have paint on the ceiling? Did my 5-year-old paint this, or did somebody capable paint it? I guess that's
Sure.
a lot of things that I think kind of go with that. A huge question we get probably once a month. I want to build a barn-dominium because I heard it's cheaper than a house.
No. Yeah, I mean, in some ways it can be less expensive.
Yep.
Cheaper is all on how you put it, what you put into it.
Right.
Is for the word cheap for me.
Quality materials.
Right. To do it right, you're looking at building a house. Sure, you can save some money because you're going to probably be a little bit more square, a few less angles, not a real steep roof.
But
so-
you're not saving $200,000.
No. TikTok, they're leaving some stuff out.
Yep.
You're not building what looks like a $750,000 house probably cost them $750,000.
Yep. Now you're going to buy that second house. All my equity or my down payments in this other house? How do I proceed to the next house? Hey, Brian, I'm willing to take that sacrifice, but I don't have much for a down payment. What are my options? What can I do with my finances?
Yeah, and I think that's the important part of I need, know that also is that second house that you buy, you can buy it at 5% down.
Right.
You don't have to have 20% down. If that was an investment property that you are buying and you stay in that house, you need 20% down. You have to.
You worry about that. I'm going to have the mortgage insurance. It's like, well, that mortgage insurance is what, maybe $102. Well, guess what? Your rental property is making
Pays
you
for it.
$300-400. So that's covering your mortgage insurance and still making you money.
I think that that's the way to look at it too, of like, okay, let's say I have cash flow in my old house of $500, right? And then it goes, all right, well, if I'm 5% down here, I have $100 in mortgage insurance, or also my payment is a little bit higher than I wanted to be. Well, technically, once you move into that house and you start getting a renter in here, it's going to reduce that mortgage payment theoretically.
Correct.
So I think looking at it from that aspect, go, yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, you have two payments here that it's at $6,000 and that's a lot, but it's like this one cash flows when it does.
Yep.
Right. And then that one goes, all right, well, this profit goes into this one. And also you have a balance that is getting reduced
And
every
you're building
single
your wealth
month.
twice as fast.
Yes,
versus
exactly.
one at a time.
Of you living in your own house. It's like, that's the important part to look at. And the way you can do that too is like, okay, well, I need some cash from there. It's like, well, now you open up the option for HELOCs. And what a HELOC is a home equity line of credit. So if you own a property if you have more than 10% into it, some companies will do it up to 90% of your loan to value ratio, which is getting kind of complicated. But essentially, like, if I own a house for $300,000 that's worth $300,000 in appraised value, and I owe $200,000 on it,
I have around 70,000.
You have around $70,000 that you can access once you get a HELOC on it. So you have one, I have one. I have actually all of my properties bundled together, so I can go to the bank and pull out a line of credit to be able to purchase another investment property from the equity of all those homes, and then I can just pay them off, close it out, which is exactly what I did yesterday too. Is I had a HELOC open to buy an investment property from my other properties and close it out with the sale of that house. So you get these options when you have that equity that you can access it for smart things.
Right.
But I think that understanding that you have those options, I think the other option that you have too is the fact that you can refinance those places. You can cash out refinance.
Right.
When it goes to now, that's a way that you'll end up losing your 3% interest rate, because a HELOC will keep your interest rate. It just goes attached to it, right?
Yep.
If
As
you
a
cash
secondary
out
mortgage,
as a secondary mortgage, your cash out refi is a little bit different. That's where
a little bit more risky.
Yeah, you're not necessarily risky. It's the fact that it'll change your cash flow because you'll change interest rates. So being the interest rates right now around 6.5, to cash out refi, you're probably gonna be at 7%. So you're gonna change your 3% into 7%. Be able to take out that 20%,
whatever amount you want to move forward on.
And you get to keep that. You get to do whatever you want with that.
Yep.
So you can do those at certain times, whenever you kind of want. Lean toward the HELOC because you want to keep that 3% interest rate.
Correct.
As long as you can.
And they're generally cheaper to obtain. Getting a HELOC is minimal closing cost versus
costs like
a complete refi is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Yeah. So know that, like a HELOC, if you have above 80% loan to value on your houses, you pay for an appraisal, or they can do automatic appraisals, so you don't have to pay the $800 for an appraisal, and it's $500 to $1,000.
Yep.
And then you have it where that interest rate will follow like the market. For the most part.
Yep.
So it'll change. They'll lock it in for a year, maybe 2 years, kind of like that. But I think mine's at like 7 or 8%, something like that, or 9. You're probably somewhere around there, and with interest rates, mortgage rates at 6.5, so it'll be a little bit more, but they're interest only payments. So if I want to go buy a flip property, right, I can take that and I can use none of my own cash, and I can use that to pay the down payment. I can use that to do the repairs. I can use that to do the other things.
Sell the flip and pays it off, and now you get the extra money.
If you like information like this, please follow, subscribe, or in the comments if you have any questions on specifically this topic. We'd love to talk about it more.